Is this supposed to impress me? Brett Wilcox sneered as he flung the ID card across the glossy marble floor. The laminated card skidded, hit the base of the counter and flipped, landing face up, just inches from a decorative brass trash bin. No one spoke. Even the tapping of heels and rustle of paperwork halted. Brett didn't flinch. He leaned back smugly, straightening his blazer as he muttered, "Next time, bring real credentials if you want to be taken seriously." What he didn't know was that the man he just humiliated was Raymond Cole, father of the CEO about to sign a $5 billion deal with his bank. The lobby of Sterling and Huxley Trust on Willow Bend Road gleamed with cold elegance. The white marble floors were polished so precisely they reflected every motion, every stare, every judgment, every misplaced assumption. And right now, those assumptions had a target. Raymond Cole stood silently near the customer service counter, 60 years old, with weathered hands and a calm, upright posture. He held a slim leather wallet that matched his demeanor, worn, dignified, and quietly expensive. His ID had just been thrown on the floor like a discarded receipt. The silence around him didn't rattle him, not even slightly. He knelt slowly, picked up the ID card without looking at Brett Wilcox, and tucked it back into his wallet. "I'm here for a simple transaction," Raymond said quietly, "but perhaps I've come at the wrong time." Brett, senior branch manager of the Kingsford office, gave a slow, performative sigh. "You're not exactly the type we expect for high-level accounts," he said with a slight smirk. "Sterling and Huxley caters to a very particular profile." Raymond didn't respond. His eyes scanned the lobby. A woman in a burgundy coat leaned toward her husband, whispering something while glancing back. Two junior bankers froze mid-conversation, watching without interfering. No one stepped in, except for one voice, soft and uncertain. "Sir," came a nervous whisper behind the desk. It was Jason Bell, Brett's assistant, clearly uneasy with the situation. "May I ask what brings you in today?" "I was hoping to open a corporate account," Raymond replied. "My daughter recommended your bank. She mentioned your firm was closing a major partnership with her company." "Oh," Brett tilted his head like he'd just heard a joke. "And what company is that?" "Local landscaping, perhaps." Raymond smiled politely. "Heliarch Systems." Brett blinked, clearly unfamiliar. "Never heard of it." "I'm not surprised," Raymond said. "But you will." Moments later, Raymond exited the glass doors without another word. Outside, the sun bathed the quiet streets of Kingsford in golden light. But inside, Brett had already moved on, pouring charm onto a blonde client dressed in gray, offering her coffee like nothing had just happened. What Brett Wilcox didn't know, what no one in that lobby knew, was that the man they had just dismissed and disrespected was not some walk-in hoping to beg for an account. He was the father of Elena Cole. Elena wasn't just any CEO. She had taken over Heliarch Systems 2 years earlier after her father's quiet retirement. The company, founded in a rented garage 30 years ago, had grown into one of the region's fastest expanding defense analytics firms. It specialized in encrypted logistics systems, high-end, high security, and high value. Raymond had built it from scratch. He poured every hour, every dollar, every part of his life into it, all while facing the invisible hands that had tried to hold him back. He knew what discrimination looked like. He had worn it, and that day at the bank it wasn't new. It was expected. Back at home, across town in a quiet brick house lined with cedar trees, Raymond removed his blazer, folded it carefully, and reached for his phone. The message he sent was short. "Elena, I need to talk to you about Sterling and Huxley. It's urgent." Her reply came quickly. "Is something wrong? I'm literally reviewing the $5 billion final contract with them right now." Raymond typed one more sentence. "Let's talk tonight. There's something you need to know." Elena Cole read the message, her fingers hovering over the touchpad of her laptop. The digital contract on her screen suddenly felt cold. She didn't know what had happened yet, but her father's silence carried weight. When Raymond Cole chose not to speak in the moment, it only meant one thing. Something serious was about to unfold, and somewhere deep inside Sterling and Huxley Trust, A man named Brett Wilcox had no idea he'd just thrown away the most important ID card of his career. Brett Wilcox could not resist the temptation to turn Raymond's humiliation into entertainment for his colleagues during lunch at the executive restaurant on the 20th floor. He recounted the story for the third time, gesturing theatrically as he imitated the supposedly humble voice of the old man. "You should have seen the look on his face when I threw the document on the floor." Brett laughed, cutting into his grilled salmon. He tried to keep his dignity, but we all know how it is. These people always think they can walk in anywhere. Jason Bell, his assistant, stirred his salad uncomfortably. "Maybe he really did have a company. You didn't even check." "Jason, honey," Brett interrupted condescendingly. "I've been in this business for 8 years. I know a real client when I see one. That man didn't even have a gold credit card." The other managers laughed, but something in Brett's overly loud tone suggested that he was trying to convince himself as much as the others. There was something about the man's calm demeanor that bothered him more than he cared to admit. "Besides," Brett continued, sipping his white wine, "it was a favor for him. Imagine how embarrassing it would have been if he had tried to open an account and found out he didn't even have the minimum deposit. I saved everyone time." What Brett didn't know was that at that very moment, Raymond was sitting in his daughter's kitchen, leafing through contracts that would make the arrogant manager swallow every contemptuous word he had uttered. "Dad, you look worried," Elena observed, pouring fresh coffee into a cup that cost more than Brett's monthly salary. "What happened at Sterling and Huxley Trust?" Raymond sighed, choosing his words carefully. "Let's just say I had an enlightening experience about how they treat certain people." "What do you mean?" The manager, Brett Wilcox, from what I saw on his badge, he wasn't exactly welcoming. In fact, he was quite clear about the type of client he considered suitable for the bank. Elena Fronad, Brett Wilcox. She knew that name from the internal reports she had received during the negotiations. A senior manager who would be responsible for a significant part of implementing the partnership that was about to revolutionize both companies. "Dad, do you want to tell me exactly what happened?" Raymond told her everything from the moment he walked into the bank to the moment his ID card bounced off the cold marble floor. As he spoke, he saw his daughter's expression gradually change from concern to something much more dangerous. Elena was known in the corporate world for her calculating coldness when someone disrespected her. "He threw your ID on the floor." Elena's voice was strangely calm, the kind of calm that precedes devastating storms, like it was trash, daughter. "But don't worry, I've been through worse." And he had. Raymond Cole had built his first company from the rubble of the discrimination he had suffered in the 1980s when no bank would finance his dream of a construction company. He sold everything, worked 20 hours a day, and built low-income houses with his own hands until he could hire his first employees. At 60, he had sold that company for a fortune that few knew about. His money was quietly invested in investment funds spread across 3 countries. But his modest appearance had never revealed the 8-digit fortune he had accumulated through decades of relentless work. "You know, daughter, it was interesting to observe how the bank works, especially considering the partnership you are entering into with them." Elena nodded slowly, her eyes taking on that dangerous gleam Raymond had known since she was a child. $5 billion, Dad. It's the biggest contract in our company's history. I wonder how they'd react if they knew that the inappropriate old man they humiliated today is the father of the CEO, who is about to make them the most profitable bank in the region. While Brett Wilcox dined at an expensive restaurant that evening, celebrating another day of maintaining the standards of Sterling and Huxley Trust, he posted on LinkedIn about the importance of maintaining strict quality criteria in customer service. His colleagues' comments praised his dedication to excellence. What he didn't know was that Raymond was on a video call with his daughter's 3 senior partners, being introduced as an informal advisor and strategic mentor. "I want you to meet my father," Elena said on the screen. "Raymond Cole, my informal advisor and the wisest man I know." Raymond waved at the camera, his expression serene, masking the plans that were beginning to form in his experienced mind. He had spent decades building empires from nothing. Taking down the career of an arrogant manager would be almost recreational. "Nice to meet you," Raymond said calmly. "Elena told me about the partnership with Sterling and Huxley Trust. How interesting. During the ensuing conversation, Raymond asked seemingly innocent questions about timelines, key contacts at the bank, and contract cancellation procedures. Information any concerned parent would ask for and information an experienced strategist would file away carefully for future use. Out of curiosity, Raymond asked casually, "What is the bank's policy on discrimination? I imagine a company of our size requires partners with solid values." The partners looked at each other. "That's an excellent question, Mr. Cole. We'll include that in the final review of the contracts." While Brett slept peacefully in his penthouse, convinced that he had kept the undesirables away once again, Raymond stayed up late reviewing every detail of the billion-dollar partnership his daughter was about to sign. For a moment, when he bowed his head in the face of insults that morning, everyone at the bank thought they had broken his spirit. But those who know true strength know that it grows precisely in silence, fueled by injustice, and is about to manifest itself in ways that will turn humiliation into revenge and arrogance into eternal regret. 3 days after the humiliation at the bank, Raymond woke up before dawn and did something he hadn't done in years. He put on his only Hugo Boss suit, which had been hanging in his closet since he sold his first company. This was no time to appear modest. It was time to remember who he really was. "Dad, are you sure about this?" asked Elena, reviewing the documents scattered across the conference room table for the 10th time. "Once we cancel, there's no turning back. $5 billion. Dad, that's almost half the company's annual revenue." Raymond adjusted his shirt cuffs and smiled. "Daughter, I've learned one thing. Building companies, money can be recovered. Dignity, once lost, takes decades to regain." The table was covered with contracts, termination clauses, and financial reports. Elena had spent the night with her legal team mapping out every comma that would allow the partnership to be canceled without significant legal penalties. Clause 17 allows for unilateral termination in the event of discriminatory practices by the financial institution, explained Dr. Enrique Mora, a senior lawyer with the firm for 15 years. "We'll need concrete evidence." "Leave that to me," Raymond said calmly, sliding a folder across the table. Inside was something that made even the experienced lawyer gulp. Printouts of Brett Wilcox's LinkedIn activity from the past 2 years, subtly prejudiced posts about quality standards and cultural fit, comments on articles about corporate diversity that revealed his discriminatory mindset, likes on questionable content. "My God," murmured Dr. Mora. "How did you get this? When you're 60 years old and have been building companies since you were 20, you learn that information is power." Raymond replied, "Brett Wilcox isn't just arrogant, he's careless." While the Cole family planned meticulously, Brett Wilcox enjoyed what he believed to be another victorious week. He had posted on LinkedIn about an excellent quarter of growth and received dozens of compliments from colleagues. His latest achievement had been rejecting 3 unsuitable candidates for corporate accounts. "Some people don't understand that we maintain high standards here," he commented to Jason during the coffee break. "It's a matter of preserving the bank's reputation." Jason had become increasingly uncomfortable with his boss's comments, especially after the incident with Raymond. "Brett, have you ever thought that maybe we're being too selective?" "Jason, honey, you're still new to this business. Over time, you develop an instinct for recognizing who really belongs here." What Brett didn't know was that at that very moment, Raymond was being welcomed as a VIP at his daughter's company headquarters. The receptionist greeted him as Mr. Cole, strategic advisor, and employees stopped discreetly to greet him in the hallways. "Dad, meet Marcus Thompson, our chief financial officer," said Elena, guiding Raymond to a meeting room with a panoramic view of the city. Marcus extended his hand with the respect reserved for major investors. "Mr. Cole, it's an honor to finally meet you. Elena always talks about your business acumen." During the meeting that followed, Raymond demonstrated why he had built and sold companies for decades. His questions were precise, his analysis was surgical, and his suggestions revealed a sharp strategic mind. "Marcus, what would be the financial impact if we had to cancel the partnership with Sterling and Huxley Trust?" Raymond asked casually. "It would be significant, but not catastrophic," Marcus replied after consulting his reports. We have other banking options that have expressed interest in similar partnerships. Meridian Equity Bank, for example, has offered even better terms. Elena and Raymond exchanged glances. Everything was falling into place. There's something else you should know, Raymond said, his voice taking on a more serious tone. I've done some research on Brett Wilcox. This man isn't just occasionally prejudiced. It's systematic. He slid over printouts of internal emails leaked by a disgruntled former Sterling and Huxley employee, messages in which Brett referred to Latino clients as cultural risks and questioned the statistical reliability of black entrepreneurs. This is unbelievable. Marcus whispered, if this leaks to the public, it won't leak, Raymond interrupted, because we're going to use it much more intelligently. Meanwhile, Brett Wilcox was having lunch at his favorite restaurant, posting photos of his gourmet meal on Instagram with a hashtag executive life. Colleagues praised his good taste and enviable lifestyle. He had no idea that every post, every comment, every public display of arrogance was being carefully archived by Raymond's team. Dad, are you sure you want to go through with this? Asked Elena, seeing the relentless determination in the eyes of the man who had taught her that dignity is not negotiable. Daughter, that man humiliated me because he thought I was insignificant. Tomorrow he'll find out that some people are much more important than they appear to be. That night, while Brett slept peacefully, dreaming of his next promotion, Raymond remained awake finalizing what would be the most spectacular downfall the Kingsford banking sector had ever witnessed. The gun was loaded, the target was in his sights, and Brett Wilcox had no idea that he had chosen the wrong opponent to underestimate. For a moment, when he threw that ID card on the floor, Brett thought he was demonstrating his power. But those who know true power know that it doesn't need to be flaunted. It simply acts at the right moment, devastatingly and irreversibly. The next morning, Raymond woke up at 5 o'clock and put on his Hugo Boss suit again. Today, it wouldn't just be his father who was humiliated. It would be the man who would teach Brett Wilcox that underestimating people can cost $5 billion. Elena, are you absolutely sure you want to do this? Asked Dr. Mora for the 10th time, reviewing the termination documents. Once signed, there's no turning back. Doctor, my father taught me that dignity is priceless, and $5 billion won't buy the respect they denied him. Meanwhile, Brett arrived at Sterling and Huxley Trust beaming. He had received a message from management informing him of an urgent meeting with strategic partners scheduled for 10 o'clock in the morning. In his arrogant mind, it could only mean one thing. His promotion had finally arrived. Jason, have my desk polished and prepare the special coffee, Brett ordered, adjusting the gold tie he reserved for important occasions. Today is the day my career takes off. At 9:45, Brett was in his office organizing the last details when Jason appeared at the door, his face visibly pale. Brett, there's a problem. The Cole family is here for the meeting. Cole? Brett frowned. I don't know any Coles important enough for strategic meetings. It's the man from yesterday, the one you... Jason swallowed hard. He's with a woman who introduced herself as the CEO of Heliarch Systems. Brett's blood instantly turned to ice. Heliarch Systems, the $5 billion company. The one that would make his career. The one whose contract was being finalized that week. Impossible, Brett muttered. But his hands were already shaking as he searched for information on the computer. Raymond Cole. Raymond Cole. The search returned a result that made Brett almost faint. Raymond Cole, 60 years old, retired businessman, father of Heliarch Systems CEO Elena Cole, estimated net worth $120 million. No, no, no. Brett repeated like a mantra as he hurried through the corridors toward the main meeting room. When he opened the door, the scene he found confirmed his worst nightmare. Raymond was sitting calmly at the main table, wearing the same impeccable suit that contrasted brutally with the simple clothes he had worn the day before. At his side was an elegant woman in her 40s, unmistakably powerful and professional. Mr. Wilcox, Elena Cole said in an icy voice. I believe you already met my father, Raymond Cole. Brett tried to force a smile, but his legs were shaking visibly. Mr. Cole, there was a misunderstanding yesterday. I didn't know that I was important. Raymond interrupted calmly. Interesting. I thought Sterling and Huxley Trust treated all clients with respect, regardless of appearance. The regional director, Douglas Farnell, arrived running, clearly upset. Miss Cole, Mr. Cole, I apologize for any inconvenience. Brett, would you please step outside? Actually, Elena said, opening an elegant briefcase, we would like Mr. Wilcox to stay. After all, he was the one who helped us make a very important decision. Brett felt sweat trickle down his back. What decision? Raymond smiled serenely. The decision to cancel our $5 billion partnership with Sterling and Huxley Trust. The silence in the room was deafening. Douglas Farnell looked as if he had been punched in the stomach. Elena, we can work this out. Brett will be disciplined. I promise you. Douglas. Raymond spoke with the authority of someone who had built empires. When your company throws a client's identity on the floor like trash, you're not just disrespecting a person. You're revealing your corporate culture. Brett desperately tried to defend himself. Mr. Cole, I was protecting the bank from possible fraud. It's standard procedure. Standard procedure? Elena slid a series of printouts across the table. These are screenshots of your LinkedIn from the last 2 years, Mr. Wilcox. Posts about maintaining proper standards and filtering out inappropriate clientele. It seems your bias wasn't an isolated accident. The evidence was devastating, subtly racist comments, likes on discriminatory content, a complete digital history of systematic prejudice. That was taken out of context. Brett stammered, just like it was taken out of context when you threw my father's ID on the floor. Elena's voice was dangerously calm. Douglas tried to salvage what he could. Miss Cole, we can fire Brett immediately. The bank does not condone this behavior. It's too late, Douglas. Raymond stood up, his presence dominating the room. Yesterday, when you humiliated me, I was just a customer. Today, I am the father of the CEO you just lost. Brett collapsed into his chair, reality finally hitting him. Please, he whispered. I didn't know. I can change. I can. Yesterday you knew exactly who I was. Raymond replied with unshakable dignity. A human being who deserved basic respect. That was all you needed to know. As father and daughter prepared to leave, Raymond paused at the door and turned to Brett one last time. Do you know what the difference is between us? Brett, you judged me by my appearance. I judged you by your character, and I found that of the two of us, only one had anything of value to offer. The doors to the room closed, leaving Brett alone with the wreckage of his career. Outside, employees whispered in the hallways. The news of the cancellation of the largest partnership in the bank's history was already spreading like wildfire. At that moment, Brett realized that some people carry a silent power that only reveals itself when underestimated by those who confuse arrogance with intelligence. True strength does not need to announce itself. It simply acts when necessary, in a devastating and irreversible way. 2 weeks after the meeting that would change everything, Brett Wilcox cleaned his desk for the last time. His dismissal had been immediate and without negotiation. 8 years of his career at Sterling and Huxley Trust now boiled down to a cardboard box and contemptuous looks from his former colleagues in the hallways. Did you really think you could treat clients like that and get away with it? Jason Bell, now promoted to his former position, watched with a mixture of pity and poetic justice. Raymond Cole was literally the father of the biggest client in the bank's history. What made it worse for Brett was discovering that his humiliation had gone viral internally. Employees shared the story in WhatsApp groups, always ending with the same phrase, "Never judge a book by its cover." Meanwhile, Raymond and Elena signed an even bigger partnership with Meridian Equity Bank. $5.2 billion, $300 million more than Sterling and Huxley Trust's original offer. The director of Meridian, impressed by the Cole family's history of integrity, had offered preferential terms. "Mr. Cole," said Marcus Chun, president of Meridian Equity Bank, "it is an honor to work with a family that values dignity above profit. That is rare in the corporate world." Raymond smiled serenely. "Marcus, I've learned that true partners are those who respect you at the first handshake, not after learning about your net worth. News of the cancellation of the billion-dollar partnership spread through the financial sector like wildfire, and Brett discovered in the worst possible way that his reputation had been destroyed, not only at Sterling and Huxley Trust but throughout the Kingsford market. 3 months later, he was still unemployed. Every interview ended the same way. "Oh, you're Brett who lost the $5 billion contract. Thanks, but we'll pass." One day, while drinking coffee alone in a cheap cafe, Brett saw Raymond enter the establishment. The man who had humiliated him was wearing simple clothes again. But now Brett knew exactly who was standing before him. Raymond ordered his coffee, paid politely, and as he passed Brett's table, he paused briefly. "Good morning, Brett. How's the job search going?" Brett swallowed hard. "Mr. Cole, I'd like to apologize. I didn't know." "Brett," Raymond interrupted gently, "you knew exactly what you needed to know, that I was a human being who deserved basic respect. Everything else was irrelevant. But I can change. I can learn." Raymond nodded. "I sincerely hope you can, because the next person you judge by their appearance may have a daughter even more powerful than mine." With that, Raymond calmly walked out, leaving Brett alone with a bitter reality, that some lessons come too late to save a career destroyed by one's own hands. 6 months later, Heliarch Systems had grown 40%, driven by its partnership with Meridian Equity Bank. Raymond, officially hired as a strategic consultant for his daughter's company, used his office to mentor young entrepreneurs facing discrimination in the market. "Dad, you turned humiliation into growth for hundreds of people," said Elena, watching Raymond mentor a young black entrepreneur who had been rejected by 3 banks. "Daughter, I've discovered that the best revenge isn't destroying those who hurt you. It's building something so great that they realize how small they were." Sterling and Huxley Trust never fully recovered from the loss. The story became a case study in business schools about how prejudice can cost billions. Brett became a symbol of everything that is wrong with discriminatory customer service. Jason, now a regional manager, implemented a diversity and inclusion program that became a model for other banks. On the wall of his office, he kept a framed quote, "Respect first, ask questions later." A year later, Raymond was invited to speak at the National Banking Convention on the importance of universal respect in customer service. When he took the stage, he spotted Brett in the audience, now working as an insurance salesman, a shadow of the arrogant executive he once was. "Ladies and gentlemen," Raymond began his speech, "today I'm going to tell you how 5 seconds of disrespect cost a financial institution $5 billion. Brett hung his head, knowing that his story would be told once again, but this time as an example of what never to do. Raymond ended his speech with a reflection that echoed throughout the convention. The difference between dignified treatment and discrimination is not in the wealth of the person standing in front of you. It's in the character of the person serving them. As he stepped off the stage to warm applause, Raymond realized that he had turned his humiliation into a lesson that would change the way thousands of professionals would treat their customers from then on. That ID card thrown on the floor had not broken his dignity. It had revealed the moral fragility of those who believe that power is measured by the ability to humiliate others. Brett tried to destroy Raymond but ended up destroying himself. Raymond learned that true revenge is not to repay the damage suffered. It is to achieve the success that his enemies could never imagine. If this story of justice and transformation touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that the best response to prejudice is success built with dignity and intelligence.